Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends, family. Oh my goodness, family this time. I always say friends and family, but this time it's actually family. You guessed it. That's right. They're back. They're ready. I'm talking about Captain Meatball as my guest today. Joined here also with Laura Gordon, of course.
Woof, woof.
Hello, Laura. Thank you for taking time out of your busy weekend to come talk to me, your family.
Thank you for acknowledging that I'm very busy.
You're very busy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. Then when was the last time we talked? When we spoke, I mean, we speak every single day. It'd be a problem if we didn't.
I think the last appearance on Talkin' Tongue would have aligned closely with the last time that Jack Delaney made an appearance on Talkin' Tongue.
Was that really? I thought no.
Around the same time.
We did a Christmas episode.
Yeah, we did. We did a Christmas episode?
Yeah, we watched the Princess Switch 2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and before that, Downton Abbey.
People get confused with each other and hilarious hijinks ensue.
And then there's a third Princess Switch coming.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Don't worry, listeners. We will cover it.
I still haven't seen the first, but
You don't need to.
I assume Laura will make me at some point. Everyone, Laura Gordon, my partner in crime and life, and
we've never committed any crimes.
Not that we know of, anyways. And Captain Meatball is on the ground, so this is really exciting because usually I have to go do a Zoom chat or talk to someone from very far away.
It's awful.
It's just so far, and instead we took the lazy way out, but not really, because even if I don't even know who I would get for this topic that wasn't you, which we'll tease it out. We'll tease it out. Even though if they clicked on this episode, they totally know what we're going to talk about today. Laura, usually we go through like all of this, introduce the guest, who you are, what you do. But,
sure.
Oh, you still want to do that? You know what? It's been a while.
Okay.
You don't show up on Ranked anymore because you're very busy again, and someone has to take care of the dog and do all that other stuff. So if this is the first time tuning in, who are you, Laura?
I'm Laura. I use she, her pronouns. And I am Tongue's, like you said, partner, not in crime, but in life, romantically.
Yeah.
And I live with him here in Kitchener, and I have a job.
Yeah, screw me for a sec. Well, not literally, but you know what? You are not defined by being a partner with me. You are so much more than that.
Nobody said I was.
No, but you started introducing yourself with two things about me. I want it to be about
just
you.
Just because I really love you.
Yeah, thank
you. Maybe I'll talk about my hobbies.
Sure.
They include baking, specifically pies. I have a pie highlight on my Instagram if you want to check that out. And I also like to do DIY. Currently working on some floating shelves, or one floating shelf for Tongue to put all his junk on.
I didn't ask for this floating shelf.
I know you didn't.
I didn't ask for it.
But you need it. You need it, bud. And working on, I'm going to stain my desk when we're done this. I've made a beautiful desk, listeners.
It is really nice. Laura is, I don't get to compliment her outside of podcasting, but I'll do it right now.
Yeah, do it.
Because she has an incredible focus when it comes to a project she wants to do. So she will find, ever since we bought a house together, and that's not a brag, but we did end up buying a house during the pandemic. And part of Laura's creativity and joy, and something that keeps her busy and her mind occupied, is to do DIY projects. And I think this will bleed into the whole segment of what keeps you happy during the pandemic. But
that's a segment?
Well, we do that.
Oh, shit.
I think we did that last time, too.
Okay.
But, you have this incredible mission type of mentality where it's like, this project has to be done, and you do it. And it's stuff that you've never experienced before because you're, fairly new to this DIY, especially the house ownership side of it.
Yeah.
And, you've failed and you've made some really great stuff over the last year.
Mm-hmm. Somebody had to hang up Spider-Man on the wall.
Well, the only other thing is that Laura's undying mission never dies. It always keeps going. There's
funny how that works.
Yeah, there's always another project to do. So what are what other projects are you working on besides the ones that you've mentioned? Or what is the high pie in the sky ones that you want to do later that you're going to reveal now?
You really want me to tell you that?
On a podcast? Sure.
Well, I'm going to rebuild our garage.
What?
I'm kidding. But we're going to have to replace our garage someday.
Yeah. But if we do that, we got to replace the patio upstairs.
So, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, later.
We don't have money for that.
Okay. I know. So the next thing I want to build is a coffee/plant stand for my office because Toiler. Tuong and I.
Toiler?
I was trying to combine it with, I don't even know.
Toilet, boiler.
Yeah, something like that. Tuong and I recently purchased a Nespresso machine.
Yes, we did this joint purchase, Laura.
Tuong loves it. And we have it currently sitting on a coffee table. And that's just not convenient. So I have this like nice little medicine cabinet type thing that I really like the doors on, but I don't like the rest of it. So I might take the doors off of the medicine cabinet and then use them to build like a little coffee stand, but then also build it up taller, like a little ladder with shelves so that it's got some room for plants on it too.
You got dreams, kid.
I got big dreams.
Big dreams.
That one is about 6 feet tall.
Right. And then, we have this there's always projects to do around the house.
Oh, the yard. Don't get us started.
Don't get us started, really, truly.
Yeah. But if you drive by our house or walk by our house, please stop and knock on the door and tell us our fence looks great because it's the only thing that keeps us going.
Soon enough. Yeah, Laura and I have been working on this fence project for what seems like forever.
Yeah.
And it just never ends.
Something always happens.
And right now we're in limbo.
1 step back.
Right now we're in limbo.
Yeah.
I won't say why. Actually, I will say why.
It's because we need gates, Dad. We need some gates.
Yeah. If your dad's listening to this, just know that we can't wait to see those beautiful gates.
I also have to take down that one section and cut the boards and put them back up.
It's just a never-ending thing. And then once you do that, then there's cleaning's always a thing. I don't know. It's really first world problems we got. We're really blessed to have those.
Absolutely, privilege problems.
Yeah. So, Laura.
Yes.
DIY, baking, all those things contribute to your happiness during the pandemic.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now, pandemic-wise, keeping you happy, but also just in general, how are you feeling navigating through this? We're almost there.
Yeah.
What it feels like, right?
Well, you've seen the emotional ups and downs, Tuong, so you know that it hasn't been easy.
Nope.
Sometimes I get irrationally mad. And there's nothing I can do about that.
Yep.
Other than, take it out on unwilling victims like yourself.
Yeah.
Not phically. Just
No.
Yeah,
I am. Well, first of all, even if it was physically, I'd win. Laura's very weak, even though she says she's strong.
Okay.
She's staring at me.
Okay.
It's a challenge. I'm provoking her.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a good message and time to say to people, I think it is... Nobody, especially on this show, has never really mentioned how hard it can be to be trapped inside with another person, in general, whether it's your partner or your roommate or family or anything like that. There is two sides to this. Of course, very isolating when you're trapped alone. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine what that's like for a lot of people to just be completely alone and seeing people where you can socially distance and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the toll it takes on people when you're trapped inside with another person, on the one hand, it's an amazing thing. You have someone you can bounce ideas off and they're there for you and it's great. Companionship.
Half the chores.
All of this stuff, yes. More than half, I would say. No, I'm just kidding. But there's the other side too, where you spend so much time with each other in the way that it can really put its toll on friendships and relationships and all this stuff. And Laura and I, and this is not to say that we're fighting right now,
but most of the time.
But it causes a lot of friction and stuff like that, even though we love each other, right?
Yeah.
It's true. I'd do anything for her, but also at the same time, it's this idea of I can't wait for us to be able to explore and have our, adventures outside of the home and have it so we can just enjoy life again and not being forced to be in one spot. So I guess I don't know where I'm going with this other than like, what do you think about this idea of spending so much time with people that you're forced to?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I can't wait to go away without you.
Sure, yeah.
I just love you, and I can't wait to go away without you.
And it's kind of
yeah.
like when we do get to do that, you appreciate the person much more.
Yeah.
And you get to explore. And it's not like, oh man, I can't wait to just not be with my woman. Like, I don't speak like that anyways.
No, but you feel it.
But it's kind of, it's that distance makes the heart go fonder. Whatever that line.
Grow, yeah.
That kind of stuff.
We haven't missed each other.
We haven't missed each other. Yeah.
It's been like max. I think I went away for like 6 hours. I drove to London and then to Milton and home, and that was the longest we've been apart in over a year. And so I think it'll be nice to like just to be alone and angry, you know?
Yeah.
So that when I have fits of emotion and it has to go somewhere, it doesn't have to go towards you because you're just not there. So I can just like go in the basement and yell or whatever.
Yeah.
Without you coming down and saying, "Are you okay?" And then me getting mad that you care about me.
Sure, yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And all that to be said, I think if anyone else is experiencing this, and I know you are out there for sure.
Tell us about your anger.
Less about that, but more that it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's totally okay. It's normal. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
You know, give yourself permission to just be like, oh, this is a completely normal thing to be what's the word? Like, you're allowed to feel this emotion that's just boiling up inside for no reason
we all
at
saw
all.
Inside Out. It happens.
Yeah, it's okay. It's irrational, but it's okay.
Our little red guy is just as important as the little yellow dude.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen that movie or understand that reference, go watch it. It's beautiful.
It'll make a lot more sense, too.
And it'll make you cry. Okay, enough of that,
If
Laura.
you have a blue.
If you have a blue. If you have I forget that actress's name. She's in The Office.
Phyllis.
Phyllis, but that's her character in The Office.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so we are going to go into the news of the week. Laura, exciting stuff happening. Right now, as we're recording, exciting stuff is happening, but you don't care, so we're going to skip through it a little bit.
I care. I just a little over my head.
Sure, but we're going to go to stuff that you do know about.
Okay.
So let's go a couple days before. Some news of the week include a Wedding Crashers 2.
Yeah, I loved the first Wedding Crashers movie. Yeah, watched it over and over again. Had the soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
And got the DVD for my birthday.
Do you
Big
feel
fan.
as though Wedding Crashers, it's been so long since I've seen it, but I feel as though it might not hold up to today's standard of comedy?
No, I don't think so. And the other thing is, it sounds like it's going to be starring Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson.
As it should.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think there's a big difference between, you know, two 30-year-old single dudes showing up at a wedding to crash it and two 50-year-old single dudes showing up at a wedding to crash it. I don't know or maybe they're not single.
You think they're still crashing weddings at...
Well, if they're making a sequel that's to the movie Wedding Crashers, I would imagine it involves wedding crashing, but who knows?
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's their sons that are wedding crashing now or something. I don't know. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it.
We're probably going to watch it.
Yeah, I guess. But I thought I would watch like Zoolander 2.
Was there a Zoolander 2?
There was a Zoolander 2 with Benedict Cumberbatch, Benny Cumby. There was Super Troopers 2. There's a lot of movies that I'm like, I think I'm going to watch this. And then they just
But
faded.
I wasn't super interested in the original of any of those.
Right.
But I did really love the original
Dumb
Wedding
and
Crashers.
Dumberer 2 or 3,
Yeah, again,
whatever.
that one was a little before my time.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm intrigued. Owen Wilson coming back, you know? Loki, he's great.
Are we going to talk about that?
Well, Loki is out.
Loki's out.
That's all we got to know.
There's a lot of fonts.
Well, we don't have to talk about the episode, but gut impression of how you feel right now with Loki.
I don't think there's a lot to go off of yet. But yeah, I like Owen Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tom Hiddleston.
I've never loved Tom Hiddleston.
No?
No.
Ever?
Never.
Still not.
Still not even when he was dating Taylor.
Wow.
Yeah.
The guy's handsome. Great accent.
Is he?
Yeah, he's charming.
I don't know.
Really, you're the first. You're the first.
I'm fine with that.
You know what? That's good. I can't fight Tom anyways. I wouldn't if he came in.
It's okay.
Parading
I would
around. You go for me. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
That's extremely nice. Yeah. I can't play Loki though. I'm sorry. All right.
That's fine.
So here we go. Mike Myers to play 7 characters in new Netflix Illuminati comedy series. This is the first time hearing about it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'll have to see this one before I pass judgment on it.
Mike Myers, it's been a long time since he's been in the forefront of anything.
Because it kind of sounds like Master of Disguise.
What's that?
That was the Dana Carvey, I think it was an SNL character that ended up getting a movie, and it was a real tanker.
Okay.
But he wore a lot of costumes, similar to what I think Mike Myers will do in this movie.
What was the last Mike Myers thing you've watched?
Did he do a Pepsi commercial as Austin Powers?
I believe it. I hope
I think maybe that.
I think those movies unfortunately don't hold up either.
No, but they were fun to watch.
I love them.
When we were younger.
Yes, I'm going to go on the impression that they're still great. I'm sure there's still some good stuff in there.
As long as you don't read anything about them or watch them again, you can keep that image of them in your mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you know that Conan O'Brien's TV show is finally ending?
I didn't know it was still going. I'll be honest with you.
It's just called Conan. It was on TBS. I don't know. I'm just reading the headline here. I think he'll get another one because Conan's been in the late night circuit forever.
Yeah. Or maybe he'll just cast.
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is a good cast.
Yeah.
It's a good cast.
We've had a few road trip listens over the years.
Yeah. How do you feel about Conan in the lexicon of late night TV show hosts?
He's a real vanilla type flavor. I watched some, I feel like Letterman was probably the show I watched the most. Mm-hmm. I watch clips of like Jimmy Fallon every now and then. You know what we should really talk about though is British late night shows.
Like what?
They're a lot of fun. They have all the guests out at once.
Isn't that James Corden though?
No. James Corden would never be successful on British television. He's successful on American television. God knows why.
Okay.
You know,
go ahead.
He wasn't as bad.
Back then?
He wasn't as bad as I thought he would be in the prom. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But so James Corden became famous in the U.S. when he brought his he was in this show in the UK, I can't remember, or One Man, Two Governors, which was like this hilarious slapstick comedy stage show that I saw with a different actor in the main role. He was brilliant. And so then they transferred it to Broadway and he won a Tony for it. And that's sort of like where his career took off. And I just wish he would have stayed there, you know? And instead he's hosting the Friends reunion and every other thing.
I don't know what it is because James Corden, when he came out, I saw him in Into the Woods, that movie. That was the first time I saw him. And then I saw him doing like late night television and stuff like that. And Carpool Karaoke. I think Carpool Karaoke was probably the moment where I started getting sick of him. I don't know what it is. And then I suppose the real tipping point was just hearing how not nice of a person he is in real life, kind of thing.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, apparently he's a little bit mean here and there, but it's weird because like I think there's aspects that I do like about him, but he now comes off as a little annoying, which I'm not sure if that's fair, but
he's just vanilla all the time. And you know what? I'm sorry. Conan's not vanilla. He's got like some walnuts in there too, probably. Maybe a caramel swirl. If James Corden is just vanilla. But how do we get to James Corden? Conan's show is ending.
I like Conan. He's funny.
Yeah, I've watched almost none of his show, so couldn't tell you much.
It's what I like about him is he's a Harvard graduate. He has a big degree, and he's just
big old degree.
He's a big brain, and he has big ideas, and he's able to craft them very smart, as opposed to a lot of I find like late night television TV hosts who, I guess they're all kind of smart in their own way and stuff like that. But I feel like Conan like really has a really unique special comedy. I guess maybe that's just why I like him better. Fallon always seems staged. Like that's the thing is when Conan talks on like his podcast, it seems like this is coming from him. He's just funny in this way. Where Fallon's just like it's written for him in a way. He's good at acting and stuff like that, but like it's just written for him.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. What else do we have? Okay, Here we go, Laura.
Yeah.
This is not interesting to you, but
Okay.
E3 has started. What do you know about E3?
Don't take it, kids. It might give you some fun in the short term, but the long term dangers are too great.
You don't know what E3 is, do you?
It's not a drug?
No.
Okay.
E3 is the biggest gaming conference that happens every single year. It's happening right now.
Why aren't we there?
It's all digital.
Okay.
It's
Why aren't we there?
It's I think we can pay to like get the Zoom room for it, which
Pass.
I'm like, why would you do that?
No.
Why would you do that? It used to be like a gaming conference where you get to go kind of like oof in a way. The Ontario University Fair where
Yeah.
you get to see a bunch of different Universities. Ontario Universities Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. I used to go there all the time. You used to
Yeah.
present there all the time. And you would have a bunch of booths of different universities and talk to people
Yeah.
about your school and stuff. Think about that, but for video games.
And I can tell you right now, kids, listeners, when you move that stuff online, it's no fun. No fun.
No, it doesn't look very fun.
No.
So that's happening right now. There's nothing really to announce at this moment. I'm sure tomorrow, if we were to record, there'd be a ton of stuff. But unfortunately, there's not. And Laura doesn't know anything about that
Ooh.
kind of...
But I could talk about E all day long.
You can talk about Dr. Mario is the only video game you really care about.
Yeah. I start on level 18. That's my warm-up. 19's a little challenging. And then it's the question of whether I get through 20 on my first try or second try.
Of course. Okay, last story before we move on to the most important stuff here.
Yeah.
What do you think about Cuphead?
Yeah, it's actually called Clap Hand, and it's in stunning graphics, beautiful animation, really unique stuff, and fun couch co-op.
There you go. That's all. And it got turned into a TV show.
Oh,
it's
God.
coming.
Okay.
So I guess that's something we're going to watch together. The animation looks beautiful. It's just a teaser.
That's something we're gonna watch together.
Guess what? Guess what?
Is Leslie gonna watch it with us?
Well, yes, he's definitely
Okay.
going to watch it. But guess what?
What?
The person who's playing the main villain in Cuphead is...
Jay Baruchel.
Wayne Brady.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I love Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
He's good.
Jay Baruchel's been showing up in my timeline a lot because he's a big Habs fan.
Yeah, I guess this isn't this week's news, but we found out that Jay Baruchel is going to be hosting the Canadian version of one of our favorite TV
At least
reality.
the first two seasons.
And it's called Documental. It's a Japanese comedy show. Definitely recommend checking it out. It is an amazing show where you put a bunch of comedians in a room for 6 hours, and it's a no holds bar situation where they can literally do anything to try to make the other person laugh, and smiling counts as a laugh.
No smiles.
No smiling or anything like that. So you can do anything. It is wild. It is insane. The things that they do on this Japanese television show is crazy. The other thing that's unique about it is you bring your own money to participate. So,
And your own props.
and everything. So you bring it in, and you could lose money
Yeah.
just by being
I wonder if the
participating.
Canadian version will do that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because there's been the Mexican version of
Yeah.
Documental, and there's been a different version of, I think, and now we have a Canadian version. What do you think about that idea, Canadianize?
I think, like, I don't really like people who don't laugh.
Right?
Like, I feel like the whole thing is that the person who wins isn't the funniest one. It's the person who, like, has to get into a headspace who thinks, like, your comedy isn't good. And that's why I maybe, like, inherently don't like the concept of the show.
You like the concept of the show. What are you saying? You've had fun with it. It just gets wild.
I guess it's like the Japanese version. Everyone laughed at everyone's jokes, right?
Yeah.
Because they have all of these warnings, and nobody ever like got through without any strikes at all. But I guess I'm just picturing the Canadian version, and I'm picturing them bringing on people who are like, well, I'm gonna win because nobody else is as funny as me, or something like that.
As the seasons go on in the Japanese version, there's
Yeah.
different rules that get implemented, which is what makes it interesting. They always try to evolve the show. So there's like a point system that it doesn't reward the people who don't do anything. If you're not doing anything and not laughing, you're not going to win because you have to get a certain amount of points or whatever it is. The Canadian version, though, and I'm not sure, I can't speak to the Mexican version. I'm a little scared because in Japan, you can do anything.
Yeah.
In Canada, I don't think we're going to see dick stuff.
Like, I'm sure there will be rules, but I'm not sure whether they will tell us the rules.
Sure. Because the Japanese version, they go off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Laura.
Didn't love some stuff.
Can you introduce why we're here today? Why I grabbed you specifically? What movie we're watching?
Yeah. Well, back in 2003, in a certain area of Canada and the United States, including our province, Ontario, as well as the state you may have heard of called New York City, there was a blackout. And little did we know that that would go on to inspire an incredible story of, of family, of self-discovery, of friendship, of love, of what it means to be home.
Oh, very nice.
And though I'm not entirely sure whether that blackout was in fact related to the story, I'm going to choose to think that it was. And maybe inspired Lin Manuel Miranda just a little bit to create his first full stage musical, In the Heights. And today, we're talking about the movie adaptation.
En un barrio called Washington Heights, the streets were made of music. I am Usnavi, and you probably never heard my name. Reports of my fame are greatly exaggerated.
Morning, Usnavi.
Pan caliente, café con leche.
In the Heights.
Da, 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 da.
This is, oh my goodness, where do I begin with this? This is a big deal for you, Laura.
A big deal. Yeah.
Big deal. Did you listen to this before Lin Manuel Miranda's, hit musical? Of course, he won tons of awards for In the Heights, but even still, like, I don't think a lot of people in the mainstream, let's just say, know about In the Heights.
No.
But everybody knows about Hamilton. Hamilton was a different beast altogether. So this was a cool opportunity to bring in this like genius stage musical onto the big screen to introduce the music of this musical to other people. And for yourself, how do you feel about In the Heights pre this movie?
Yeah. Well, I think the first time I heard any music from In the Heights was around 2014. So that would have been like while his other big musical, Hamilton, was in development. And I heard a couple of songs from it because for Christmas, my dad got me a subscription to Sirius XM satellite radio, which included a whole channel of Broadway. So I usually had that on playing all the time in my apartment. And of course, they'd play all kinds of different musicals. And In the Heights, which had closed by then, would pop up a lot. And I was like, it's okay. And then flash forward to, I guess it was early 2016 that you and I started listening to Hamilton and got completely hooked on that. So while Tuong was living in Ottawa and I was living in Waterloo, whenever we drove to or took trains or whatever to see each other, we'd usually have Hamilton playing on repeat.
Yeah, well, it's basically when Laura and I started first seeing each other. Like this was like the first
Hamilton.
Yeah, I've listened to Hamilton, at least even the first song in general, so many times because Laura just kept putting it on. And I enjoyed it, let's just say. But it was
I forced it on you until you liked it.
It's true, though.
And then, so after hundreds of listens to the Hamilton soundtrack, I was sort of like, you know what? It's great to have it, but I can't listen to it for 6 hours straight on these road trips. So I'm going to check out what else is out there. And, I'd throw on Taylor, go through her discography, obviously. And but every once in a while I was like, let's try something different. Maybe I'll check out this In the Heights thing. And then I gave the whole soundtrack a listen and I was like, well, damn, this is a masterpiece. And so then I got hooked on In the Heights, which is like, I don't know if it could be more different from Hamilton musically. It's like a totally different story set in, at least a lot closer to present day, and a lot of, I guess, Latinx influence in the style of music. Because it is representing like a primarily Latin neighborhood in northern Manhattan called Washington Heights.
Washington Heights. And so really, really loved it, and learned that I'm not sure how long the show was on Broadway. I think it was only a few years, but it did win the Tony for Best Musical, so that was like a huge deal. I think Lin was like the youngest person to ever win the award for best score or something, whatever the equivalent is at the Tonys. Sure.
And so it was a hit, although it wasn't really a sustained hit, I guess, on Broadway.
No lasting power outside of it, right?
Yeah. So when I started listening to it, I learned that some production studio had bought the musical, or the rights to the musical, for a film adaptation, but it was sort of stuck. And then when the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke, I guess I think it was Miramax who owned the rights to In the Heights, and Lin and Chiara Allegria Hudez, who wrote the I think you call it the libretto, I don't know, basically the stage equivalent of the screenplay.
Okay.
The book of the musical. I guess they fought to get the rights back, and then once that happened, wheels started turning again, and around 2016 John Chu was brought on board. John M. Chu. Yeah,
famous for Crazy Rich Asians. Probably other stuff too, but
which hadn't come out yet. So it was sort of early. But he had a lot of experience with dance film. So Step Up and Step Up 2 were directed by him.
Really?
Step Up to the Streets. I don't know if he did Step Up 3D.
Oh my God.
So John M. Chu, great guy, very talented filmmaker. And I think it was the summer of 2019 that they filmed this. Originally supposed to be released last year, but in March, April, they probably decided that they would postpone it, which Lin really didn't want to do. But
I thought they had another scene or something. They had to like film a couple more things before they could release it. Did I make that up?
I don't know if they still had to film more, but I think either way they would have delayed it, because it wasn't like nobody was going to the movies, right?
Yeah, so. And there wasn't the like rent from home aspect of it.
Exactly.
We can get into that money aspect of it in a little bit, because you brought it up this morning. But yeah, as you can see, Laura knows a lot about musicals. She loves them.
Let me tell you one last thing. Tuong and I had a very big summer lined up last year. We were going to get married, go to Disney World, spend a week at our friend's cottage, and then watch In the Heights, and it was going to be like this awesome month.
Like a bang, bang, bang,
and
bang,
then,
bang.
All of those things got canceled. So
yeah, but they all are coming now in different stages and and whatever.
That's why one of the reasons why we are so hyped to watch this is because we've been waiting an extra year for it to come out, and we were so excited. And we're both huge fans of Anthony Ramos.
Yeah. I would say so. Like Laura, you're huge on musicals. We know this. People at home can probably start feeling that you're huge into Broadway and all of that stuff. Like, you are huge fan of all this stuff. You know your Broadway more than most people that I know. Probably not as much as people who actually perform in Broadway and musicals and stuff like that. But you are pretty tapped in. I think you can speak on the level as other musical nerds in general.
Most of it comes from my SiriusXM Broadway subscription.
That is now expired.
Yes, it has.
So we are, let's just say, use the word blessed with musical movies coming out this year. In the Heights. We're talking about West Side Story, things like Dear Evan Hansen and Ben Platt's Hair.
Tick, Tick, Boom.
Tick, Tick, Boom.
Don't get me started.
I don't know
on
what
Ben
Tick, Tick, Boom is. Is that based on another musical?
It's so it's a movie adaptation of Jonathan Larson's semi-autobiographical musical called Tick, Tick, Boom. Jonathan Larson is the creator of Rent, and it's going to be directed by Lin Manuel Miranda.
LMM.
So talented.
So I want to know, before we get into actual In the Heights, because we actually haven't talked about it yet, but what do you think this idea of musical movies have always been kind of a thing?
Yeah.
But only in the last few years, I feel as though there's a new renaissance of movie adaptations of musicals. Now, I'm not talking about things like Pitch Perfect, or that type of thing, because that's just like a musical movie, but it's not movies based on a musical play, famous musical plays. What is happening right now that are making musical movies a thing again?
Yeah, I think it's the Hamilton effect. And even though like the what would you call it? It's not a film adaptation, but it's like the filmed version of the stage play or stage musical Hamilton wasn't even supposed to come out until the end of like next year. Maybe it was the end of this year. And even though it's not like a movie musical in the sense that In the Heights is, I think it really showed the demand for it. But also Hamilton, the stage show, showed that people could get excited about musicals in a way that they really hadn't before. So I think like studios are really capitalizing on that. And I think Dear Evan Hansen is probably a direct result of it. So Dear Evan Hansen won the Tony for Best Musical the year after Hamilton. And it's an awesome show. And its music is by Pasek and Paul, who did The Greatest Showman and did La La Land. So they already had demonstrated like commercial success in bringing their music to film. But I think like one of the reasons Dear Evan Hansen became such a big hit was that people were really paying attention to Broadway again. And so they got excited about it.
Right.
And, you know, not to the same level, but in the same way that they got excited about Hamilton.
So this will bleed into the conversation of actual In the Heights soon, but maybe we'll talk about it throughout this conversation. But it does seem like everything you're talking about is true. There's an excitement for musicals that there hasn't been in a long time. Again, there's been musical movies all over the place in the past, but this seemed more like an event, and the movies to come also seem like an event. That said, In the Heights this weekend, as of right now of this recording, didn't do well. What does that say?
It says that people are the worst. I don't know. And it's funny, I have such a narrow view of it because I follow the In the Heights account and all of the stars on Instagram and see like all of the retweets of celebrities who are saying like, this movie's incredible, go see it. So to me, I'm like, how could you not have this movie on your radar? But I think a lot of people like don't follow those accounts, right?
Yeah.
And so it might just not like be on their radar at all, or maybe they're not into musicals, or maybe it's because they haven't heard of In the Heights other than like these very direct like go see this movie kind of thing. I read one really disappointing thing online that was like, oh, people feel like it's homework because it's like, well, this you have to go see this because it was Lin Manuel's first musical, and I don't know, so that's kind of
that's weird.
Yeah, I didn't really like that, but I hope that people will go see it because they see it as an opportunity to like discover other types of other musicals from just Hamilton, recognize like the importance of musicals that don't just star white people, because most of them do, as well as like celebrate life and get out to the movies and not just go see a superhero movie.
That's kind of, I agree with all of this, and I love superhero movies and stuff like that. It's very disappointing, I think, in some people. Like, you know, we fight so hard, and when I say we, it's the royal we. Like I'm not specifically fighting, but like the world is fighting for more BIPOC and representation on the big screen in genres of our favorite things: musical, superheroes, action, drama, whatever it is. And it's especially like, you know, In the Heights is so tapped into that. It is representation on the screen, and it's music and how they sing stuff too. It's amazing, but it's just a little disappointing to see that people aren't going to support this type of stuff. I'm not sure, because it felt like this had a lot of marketing and it had big push and excitement, but maybe it's the thing that you're experiencing where like I might be following the accounts that make it seem bigger than it is.
Exactly. I do think that Warner Brothers put like an incredible amount of effort and money behind the campaign for this movie, which was great to see. I think the concern is that they see it as like, oh, okay, so, you know, Crazy Rich Asians, that was awesome. People loved Crazy Rich Asians. It made a ton of money at the box office. So we should continue to make movies that feature Asian casts. And I think the danger is like, okay, but we made this movie that's almost exclusively a Latino cast and it wasn't successful. So is that something we want to invest in again? So I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to support movies that represent all communities. But I also think there's a huge difference there that I hope studios will recognize, which is like romantic comedy versus a musical. I think like rom-coms, especially, it came out on Valentine's Day, didn't it? Are, I think, appealing to a wider audience in general versus musicals. So I imagine that that's like something at play as well. But I mean, Anthony Ramos has already been cast in the next Transformers movie.
Has he really?
Yeah. So
he's going to be Mark Wahlberg or Shia LaBeouf's character?
Well, I think he's going to be a different character entirely. But like that guy's a star, and I hope that Hollywood
rising star
will continue to recognize that. But I also hope some of the other amazing cast members get opportunities as well.
Yeah, I there's part of it obviously is still the pandemic and going to see the movies versus renting at home. I think a lot of people, even though it's easier for us to access this, they won't pay the money to see it at home, and they won't go to the theater, so they'll do neither option, which is like, well, that's frustrating. And I get it, money's tight, it's all good. It's $25 instead of $14 at the movies.
Watch it with a friend.
Watch it multiple times. You have 2 days to watch the same movie.
Set up a screen in your backyard, invite some people over, sit 6 feet apart, whatever you got to do.
And they're like, well, you don't get the big movie experience. You can. Bigger TV, projection, all this stuff. Is it worth the effort for the movies you want to see? Yeah. Sure it is. I have to say, I fucking hate going to the movies and having to... I haven't done this in so long, but you and I... Especially me.
We love going to the movies.
I love this, but I had a streak of like 12, 13 movies straight of people just pissing me off at the theaters. People talking during the movies. People chewing loudly.
Taking out their phones.
Taking out their phones is the freaking worst.
Standing up.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you can't pause and all this stuff. Yes, bigger screen, the food, the popcorn, all this other stuff. Yes, there's something about the movies that is magic, but I hated that stuff.
Yeah.
To be able to pause is great.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's why going forward, we will only ever go to movies where we bought out the entire theater.
That's right, because we are that rich. Laura, we have spent so long talking around the movie, but we have to talk about the movie.
Okay.
Go ahead. You already set up the kind of... Well, no, you haven't. You want to just set up the premise of the movie and a little bit of that, and then we can just dive into spoilers and whatever.
High level.
Yeah.
The what's the word for people who live in a place? The citizens of Washington Heights live their lives in the days leading up to and during a blackout. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. More specifically, we follow the stories of a few central characters like Usnavi, who is kind of like a cornerstone of the neighborhood, as he tries to return to his home country of Dominican Republic and purchase his father's old bar / coffee stand shop there. And Nina, who is... a resident of Washington Heights, who has recently moved to go to school at Stanford, and she returns home and has not had a positive experience, but is also in some ways carrying the hopes and dreams of the entire community as, the one who got out. And then there's Vanessa, who just wants to move downtown, get away from home's where Vanessa's running away from, and Benny, who is... His plot line is mostly that he's in love with Nina, but he also wants to be like a successful businessman. Yeah,
I'll be honest. I've listened to the soundtrack many times, although to be honest, anytime Laura puts it on, I'm like about to pass out in the car because I get car sick and I can't usually...
Tongue naps a lot in the car.
A lot. Unless I'm driving.
Yeah.
Then I probably won't nap.
Then you don't nap.
I don't nap unless I'm really tired. Then I'll shut my eyes for a few seconds.
We don't joke.
Really min-max. No, we don't joke. We don't joke. So here's the thing. In the Heights, different than Hamilton in the way that Hamilton for me was I can discern songs very easily. And I would say even after watching In the Heights, it's the same thing. Hamilton, each song feels unique. And not to say In the Heights songs don't feel unique, but I can definitely tell the difference between one song and the other song because there's different melodies going on and the way they deliver it, even though it's kind of rap-ish in the Heights as well, some aspects of that. I can mostly tell what they're saying. In the Heights is harder. I feel like they speak much faster in their lyrics, which is part of the music, which is fine.
Yep.
So I can't really pick up on the story as I did with Hamilton. Hamilton, the whole soundtrack is the plot of the movie. Where in the Heights, there is talking in between.
There are gaps, right?
So it's harder to tell. So me saying that, I'm mostly saying that like I really didn't know what In the Heights was about until I watched the movie, because now I can follow what's actually happening, and that made things click better. Maybe like separate the songs better too, because they all have a certain rhythm to it. Even though they are different songs, there is a still driving force in the instrumentation that I feel like make the songs feel like part of the same song.
Yeah, I think the melodies reoccur more often in the Heights versus Hamilton. I mean, that might not even be true. It's just that there are so many more songs in Hamilton that there's obviously going to be a lot more melodies. Like, what does Hamilton have? Like 40 tracks or something like that?
Sure, yeah.
In the Heights, the cast recording has 20, I want to say 23, but the movie version, the film soundtrack has 16 plus the credit song,
Right.
so like half the songs of Hamilton, but still, what, 2 hours 20 minutes?
It was 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah. Didn't feel like it though. It was quite I guess general thoughts before we really get into it. I loved it.
Yeah.
That was great.
Great.
It was great.
Feel good, inspiring, makes you think about home, makes you think about family, but makes you think about your dreams too.
Yeah, and like on another level, it was just John M. Chu is so good with visual feasts.
He's a visionary.
Yeah, so like when you're looking at the cinematography and the colors and the vibe of it, it's very positive. The whole thing is it's so musical in that way, where it's like everybody in the town love to dance.
Yeah.
They're just, everybody's smiling most of the time. Even when there's a blackout, you get some people who are bummed out, and then the rest, you have some characters like, you know what, we'll solve this, a full-on dance number with everybody here. And it's you can't help but love it in a way. It's so musical in that way.
And I loved how big the the big musical numbers, the production was incredible, because they had like, it looked like 1,000 dancers for the opening number, where they're all like dancing in the streets of one intersection in Washington Heights, and people just went on forever and ever and ever, but every single dancer was so incredibly talented and like so in sync with the music. And then the other huge production number they did was 96,000
in the pool,
which takes place in a freaking pool. I can't remember the name of it, but I've listened to a lot of like interviews and stuff with the creators of the show or of the movie since, and so Chiara Alegria Hudas, who wrote it, I guess she wrote it with Lin Manuel Miranda, but she did the screenplay for the movie. She was talking about how she and I think John M. Chu and some other producers probably were out like exploring the neighborhood, looking for the block that they wanted to base the story around. And after they kind of figured that out, someone was like, what else is there in the neighborhood that we should know about? And she was like, oh, we could go like look at the pool. And so they got to the pool, and everyone was like, well, shit, we got to use this somehow. Like,
that's cool.
What piece of the puzzle could we fit this into? And they realized like, oh, 96,000, this could happen here.
Yeah.
But apparently the day they filmed it was freezing cold, really bad weather. It kept raining.
Oh no.
So everyone was pretty miserable.
Yeah.
And
turned out great though.
Yeah, but it looks incredible. And it's a great song too.
I was thinking as they were filming it, because they all film with a smile and this positive vibe. Like you have to. This movie moves in that way where everyone has an energy about them.
Yeah.
But in the filming aspect of it, I'm like, man, it'd be so hard to keep that smile and smirk going throughout the entire.
And even just like to film, like think of all of the electronics associated with filming, and then you bring them to a pool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't make movies, so I don't know what that's like, but I imagine it just makes things even more complicated.
So on a visual standpoint, they knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
Like everything in the visual stuff like is so good, and there's like there's a effects a song where they're like doing hand motions and there's like a chalky effect going on. So they do that in post, which was really, really neat. And there's also, I think, like
I felt like that was very John Chu.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's like I would say not a flagship song, but like the song that would like really showcase the visuals is they start dancing at the side of the building and stuff like that.
Oh yes,
and
when
that
the
was
sun goes down.
Really cool. It's like very cheesy in a way, but I think with this movie and movies like this, especially if you're watching a musical too, you have to kind of let yourself be in it. And when you let yourself embrace this type of creativity, it's like it's beautifully shot.
Yeah, and I think that was something that the director fought for, was like this isn't a small movie. Like I think Lin and Kiara were like, let's just get it made. Like any version of this is awesome because it means that we'll be able to cast Latinx actors and represent our neighborhood. And then John Chu came on board and was like, no, this is a huge movie. We're going to dedicate all the resources we can to it and make it like the big budget and big visual musical that it is. And so he really didn't shy away from that. And I think like that's probably one example. I imagine it was a really complicated, technically song to produce, but it's so beautiful and shows off, parts of the neighborhood that maybe you wouldn't take time to recognize the beauty of, which is just the side of a building at sunset. And is also just like a nice suspension of reality, which so much of the movie is. But
they gotta
nice
go
moment.
from like grounded to like, oh, this is just not cartoon land, but like it's just it's like a dream type of sequence kind of thing, and it's really awesome like that. But it just bums me out just just reminded that the movie didn't do so well. And I'm like, no, like musicals deserve to have this money put into it so it can be this grand, so the vision can come alive. So hopefully as the weeks go on and people tell each other about this movie, that it's something to be seen. Okay, Laura, so when we're talking about the difference between the original versus this, you said songs were cut out of this movie. Did you notice that as you're watching it, being like, where's this, where's that? Did you miss it?
There were a few that I knew in advance weren't going to be there. So they cut one character from the stage production, Camila, who was Nina's mom. So they made a brief reference to it in the movie adaptation. They said, like, her father said something about how her mother had passed away. And she had a pretty big song. And then Nina's dad also didn't, the song that he has in the stage show wasn't brought into the movie. And I think that there were two songs that I was like, oh, I wish they'd had that. That was one of them. Because it really just like explains a little bit more of Kevin Rosario, so that's Nina's dad, his background, and like why he pushes Nina so hard and why he wants all these things for her. And it was because like his father wasn't good to him and he had big dreams, and his father basically laughed them off and was like, you'll never be successful. And then, he came to America and built this business and by most accounts was successful, but he's also instilling his own dreams in Nina to be even greater than anything that he's become. So that song, Inutile, which means useless. Such a sad like sentiment for a parent or anyone to feel. I kind of missed that one. And then the other one that I really missed was the song that Nina sings in the second half. And I'm about to drop a spoiler. Can I drop a spoiler?
To the movie? Or
Yeah. Are we no spoilers?
We're spoilers. We can do it. People
Okay.
should watch it, but here's some spoilers. I don't think it matters for spoilers in this movie, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't feel
guess
that
not.
way.
It happens about the halfway mark.
Yeah.
Abuela Claudia, who is, we haven't talked about her yet, but she's the matriarch of the neighborhood. She's taken care. She's like the mother or grandmother aunt to so many of the neighborhood's children's, and then as they grow up adults, children singular as they grow up adults, so she's sort of like the mother to Usnavi, who's lost his own parents, so she passes away. And she was also very much like a mother to Nina. So Nina has this beautiful song in the second half of the stage show called Everything I Know. And it just tells you a little bit more about how Abuela Claudia was that role to so many people in the neighborhood. So I did miss that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one other song from that, like a duet that Benny and Nina have that isn't one of my favorite songs anyways, and they have 2 other duets, so I was okay that they dropped that one.
Sure. The only one I noticed was the Enough song. But yeah, it's, you know what though, like they made the cuts and the people who made those decisions were like, you know, Lin, for example. So it's like, okay, if he feels as though it doesn't belong, then I can support that artistic vision, because otherwise this movie would be like 3 hours long instead. And that's probably too long for a music. It's already 2 hours and 20 minutes. And even though I didn't feel it, I'm sure someone else would, because that's pretty long. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the cast as well.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I think they all did a great job fitting into these roles compared to the original soundtrack. But let's hear it from you, the musical nerd. Thoughts?
Yeah, I love them all. That's basically it.
Is there anyone that you're like, nah?
No.
There's nobody that's just like that. They're not the right fit for this role.
Everyone was great.
Perfect cast.
So well cast. Wouldn't change a thing.
Who's the best cast? That's the weird
Who's
one.
the best dancer? I meant to look this up ahead of time to see whether Melissa Barrera, who plays Vanessa, was actually doing all of her own dancing. Because if so, she's a freaking incredible dancer.
Yeah.
There's this one number called The Club, where they're in a club and dancing happens. And holy shit, she's amazing.
Yeah. This movie is chock full of very attractive people.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They're just like, Anthony Ramos is just like a buff dude.
Yeah.
He has a really handsome face. And then you have the girls as well, who are just like
gorgeous,
perfect bodies, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what is happening? Bodies of all shapes and sizes, but they all look great and they're all confident about it, right? So
and
it's great.
I love that they did close-ups of so many different types of bodies and didn't shy away from, like, I feel like so many movies, they would be like, oh, there's cellulite in that shot, so we can't use it.
Yeah.
And instead they zoomed in on it. And I was like, this is freaking amazing.
And it's cool, too, because they also, like, highlight the elderly dancing and doing their own moves. I'm like, fuck yeah.
And
like,
show off the way different bodies move and different hair moves and all that stuff.
It's really celebratory in that way.
Very much so.
So Jimmy Smith was the one that I was just like, that guy is just aging like a fine wine. He is.
And wouldn't it have been great if he had a song? Oh.
He kind of looked the same age ever since I've seen him on TV and stuff like that. I remember seeing him on Dexter, Sons of Anarchy, and like a bunch of other stuff. But I'm like, yes, he's perfect.
Beautiful man.
He's perfect. Gets more handsome every day.
But the heart of the movie,
Anthony Ramos?
Abuela Claudia.
Oh, her too. Yeah.
So I have no idea. So the actress who plays her name is Olga Merediz. I have no idea how old she is. She played her in the stage version, which was 13 years ago.
Oh, she's the same.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the thing that boggles my mind is, like, in the interviews with the cast, she looks like she's maybe 50, if that.
Oh, wow.
But in the movie, how old do you think she's in the movie? Like 80 or something like
80,
that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, were you like 30 when you played her in the stage version? I didn't understand, but either they have some great makeup artists on her in the movie, or they have some great makeup artists on her for her interviews, or both. Who knows?
Right.
But I think she does such an incredible job of, like, her movements. I find so endearing, and just all of the little touches and the little ways she looks at everyone around her. You're like, oh, how do you not just fall in love with this woman?
Absolutely. I think we have to also spend time for sure on Anthony Ramos because he is the star.
He's the star.
And I said again, he's a rising star.
Yeah.
People keep, like, you know, I think his entire life so far, especially beginning at Hamilton, Lin would be like, this guy's going to be a star one day. And they said that at like awards
like
show.
From the day he cast him in Hamilton, or they cast him in Hamilton,
Yeah.
he's been talking about how he's going to be a star.
And he hasn't yet hit that like mainstream zeitgeist. This is the beginnings, right? Like, you know, he's been in Hamilton, he's done his own album, he's a fantastically talented person, but he's not discovered in the way that people are like Anthony Ramos, right? He's not there, even still.
He's not as recognizable yet.
So what did you think, like, this being like probably his big first movie, right?
Yeah, I thought he did an awesome job. And so Lin Manuel played Usnavi in the original stage version, and so I think it's always going to be like, there's always going to be a way to compare whoever's playing Usnavi to him. But those two are so different. Like, Lin just has this, like, not deer in headlights, but like this real sort of innocence to him, or like this real sense of like kid-like wonder in the way he looks around at the world. Whereas I think Anthony Ramos brings maybe like a little bit more maturity to the role.
Sexiness
For sure. And it's funny, there's one scene late in the movie where I'm like, I feel like his shirt is getting tighter with every shot. It was awesome. And one of the interesting things that I've read in a bunch of interviews with Lin is him talking about how, like, Lin is really more, even though he played at Usnavi, he's really more of a Nina. Like, he felt like the one who the neighborhood kind of placed their hopes on, and was maybe more like academically minded, but was like, okay, I need to go out into the world and be successful. Whereas Usnavi's like, I just want to get out of here. I want to go back to Dominican Republic. Those were the best days of my life, even though we learn late in the film that the best of his days of his life weren't about where he was. They were about who he was with. Yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, he's like a completely different choice from Lin, but I think we see so many of his strengths as an actor, especially he's done so much of his work on stage so far where you have to play to such a big room, right? And he was so great as John Lawrence, like, especially, in certain scenes, because he dies as both of his characters.
Spoilers,
so he's
yes,
brings some of the drama, but he also has so much comedic impact too on the stage. And again, you got to see that in this movie, but it's so much more subtle, and there were so many more just like flicks of his gaze and like little whispers of a smile that would cross his lips that you'd never be able to see on the stage, but that he does so effectively on film.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it is the first time I've seen him act for camera, I guess. And yes, you see a little bit more emotional range coming from him that you don't get to see in a musical as much, right? Because like I see him having a resting face a lot of the times, but you don't get to see him do his big smiles or anger and like that type of thing. So it was really neat to see him actually flex those muscles and be like, yeah, he's doing a really good job over here. Yeah.
And even the scene he has with Vanessa where she's like, I have a date tonight, and he's like, I have a date, we have a date, and you get to see, like, I think a scene like that wouldn't play very well on stage, but they both play it like fairly
like a very
subtly.
dorky type of energy.
Yeah, and it's really, really cute.
Yeah, I agree. So there was some stuff that is new to this movie version of.
Yeah. And
do you want to discuss that a little bit?
So like musically, the only thing that was new was the closing number, which I think Lin Manuel wrote for Anthony Ramos and I can't remember her name, Leslie, the girl who plays Nina.
Sure. And
Mark Anthony, who makes an appearance in the film as well. And then I don't know that a lot was new, but there were a lot of changes. So one thing that might have been new, but since I haven't seen the stage version, I don't know if it is or not, is a little bit more about Sonny. We haven't talked about Sonny yet, have we?
No.
Sonny is Lin's cousin, so I always picture him being like 13 or something like that. So he works at the shop with Lin, and he's this guy with big dreams. He wants to talk about gentrification. He wants to think about sustainable housing and like just this really sort of socially minded kid who wants to make a difference. And so he's like going out to marches and stuff. But we learn partway through the movie, and this is a bit that I'm not sure is in the stage version as well, is that he's undocumented. So like Usnavi pays him under the table for that reason. And he learns partway through that like going to college is going to be harder for that reason. And they talk a little bit about the Dreamers, which is a class of people in the United States who, from what I understand, their parents came to America or the United States illegally, but they've been granted status within the country, but their status is temporary. So this has been a big thing in American politics over the last year, of like, what do we do about the Dreamers? And at various points, it seems like there's been a solution in Congress, but they haven't actually pushed anything through to support them. So that's still kind of in limbo, and it's kind of cool for them to introduce that political element. I feel like it's more effective at a time when people don't like the president to introduce a storyline like that. So that's something that might have resonated a little bit more in 2020 versus 2021. But
it's still an ongoing thing, though. This type of political issue, if you will, is still very much still relevant. So whether, you have a president that people don't like, let's say, I would say it's still relevant even if you do like this president.
People should still be lobbying for action for Dreamers and holding their president accountable and that sort of thing.
So what I do like about this overall story is that when I listen to the musical, I didn't really know what this musical is about. I've listened to this so many times, still couldn't follow what the plot of it. And the way that I see it now, it's just like it is about Washington Heights, but it's about like 5 different characters and their little stories coming into one. And it's not like this grand, it's a small scale story, personal to the person, but presented in a big way. Yeah. So big music, big numbers, that kind of stuff. But even still, there's no like, well, it's not a superhero movie, but there's no world-ending threat. There's no like giant one-person storyline, even though Usnavi is the main character. But that's fine because you're curious, invested about all these other people that make up Washington Heights, those personalities.
And I think it shows off how critical certain people are in those communities. Like Abuela Claudia was the matriarch of Washington Heights, and her absence is felt like so thoroughly by everyone in the neighborhood. They have this candlelight vigil for her during the blackout, and everyone is really kind of shaken by her death. And I think there's certain parallels there with her death and Usnavi potentially leaving as well. Like, of course, he's much younger than Abuela Claudia, but he's one of those people who would really grow and become a cornerstone of the neighborhood. And how important it is to keep those people within the neighborhood, so that they can, have positive impacts on people like Usnavi and like Sunny as they grow older too. The positive influence is really important.
Yeah. I have one more point, and I know you wrote down notes, so you probably
just
have a few things you want to say. The last thing I'll say, I probably should have said this earlier. I did find Stephanie Beatriz. She's in this movie. Yeah. I found her a little distracting, and I don't know if it's because I've seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm not even, I like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I probably stopped at season 4 or 5. I know there's way more after that, but seeing her in this is such a big shock because she's such a different character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She's very stoic. She's serious. She's, in this, she's like almost the ditzy girl.
Very over the top.
And it's so, for me, I'm just like, that's the only part where it just took me out of the movie because I couldn't see her in this.
Yeah, I can understand that. I saw a really funny tweet the other day that was someone basically posting the exact same thing, and she responded, acting. That was all. I was like, good for you,
that's
girl.
fair. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, I'm so happy that like people are so much more than just a single role, right? I hate typecasting is like a real problem with actors and stuff like that. They finally land the role of their dreams and then they get stuck because they acted so well in a thing. So it's nice that someone gave her a shot in this other thing that's completely opposite. Just, it is really hard to accept her in
the
this.
The early number No Me Diga, which takes place in like the salon where, I don't know why I said that, the salon where Vanessa and Carla and Daniela and Kuka work. I found her expressions to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can't look at anyone else right now because they were so over the top. So
they were very over the top.
But I felt like she settled into the character as the movie progressed.
I was just watching her specifically because sometimes I'm like, some of the acting felt like a stage play musical acting where it's very over the top. Like the expressions are big and wide, but it didn't feel like TV express or movie expression. I don't know how to say that better than like, it just felt like
she was acting for a stage instead of for a camera.
Sure. Yeah. And I felt that.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
That's to say she still did a good job. It's just, it was just,
she does this really great, like, hip check at one point where she lifts her knee in the air that I've seen become a gif already, and I'm like, I'm on board with that.
Okay,
big
cool.
time.
Yeah. All right, Laura, hit me with all the notes you have left.
Okay, so things that are different. They changed around the order of a few songs. So I was a little bit jarred at the beginning when after the opening number, they went into Benny's Dispatch. And I was like, they're supposed to do Breathe next. Did they cut Breathe? It's fine. They just moved it. And then Paciencia y Fe, which is like a really big number in terms of like the emotions of the film. So it's a song that Abuela Claudia sings. In the movie or in the stage version, it's like a mid first act number, but here it's sort of like the first act finale. Although they don't have an intermission, just so
no intermission. Laura thought there would be, but I'm like, it's a movie.
So that gets moved up because, or gets moved later on because they get rid of her other song. Moved around a couple of other things, but so there were two big changes that I found. One of them was a big change. One of them was a very small change, but it bugged me a little bit. So in the stage show, they explain where Usnavi's name comes from, but they explain it near the very end of the show. And because they don't explain it to the end, I think it's so much more impactful and so much funnier. So the story is when his parents came over from America, they had him with them as a baby. Or maybe his mother is pregnant, actually. Anyways, so they see a ship and they say, Usnavi, that's what we'll name the baby. And then the song goes, it actually said U.S. Navy, but hey, I worked with what they gave me. And I think that is just like such a brilliant reveal of where his name came from. But in the movie, he just says it, like he tells a story. It's still funny, but it's really early in the movie, so there just isn't the same like payoff. Anyways, that was probably just
that was the small one.
That was the small one. The big thing, and I totally get why they did this, and I think it was smart of them to do this because it drove the plot a little bit more. We haven't really talked about the fact that the thread running through the plot of this movie is that Usnavi's shop has sold a winning lottery ticket. So the song 96,000 is about the fact that the ticket was worth $96,000. And in the stage version, the song Paciencia y Fe that Abuela Claudia sings, again, that's like midway through the first act, reveals that she has the winning ticket. And so she tells Usnavi, and when the blackout hits, they're like, okay, we need to go protect the money because she has it in cash under her bed or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And so through the whole second half of the movie, or of this show, we know that Abuela Claudia has the money and Usnavi is aware of it. But in the movie, it's not until the very, very end, after Abuela Claudia has passed, that we discover that she had the ticket and she left it and wrote Usnavi's name on it. So he knows that she wanted him to have the money. And that's what, or that's maybe part of the decision that makes him stay in Washington Heights instead of going to Dominican Republic. And also because he knows he can use that money to help Sonny stay in
So with
US,
that said, do you have a preference between the two?
I think they made the right choice, but I like the way it is in each of them. Like, I think in a movie, you need more of a driving force in the plot, right? So you need something to drive you through to the end. And that's what kind of did it, was just never knowing who had the winning ticket. Although it wasn't like a huge thing.
Yeah. I think that moment was a lot sweet. I mean, like, just you describing it, because I didn't know. You describing it, like the movie version sounds better, emotional payoff wise.
Yeah,
and just,
exactly.
Like, it's just nicer to have that, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think in the stage version, it creates a little bit more tension when the blackout happens, because there's a lot more worry too, that they're like, oh God, people are looting. We need to go protect the shop. We need to go make sure Abuela Claudia is okay, make sure her money is safe, and that sort of thing. So it sort of heightened the tension during blackout. But instead, they made that more about the relationships that were happening between Benny and Nina and Usnavi and Vanessa.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about the movie?
I wanted to talk about Piraguero versus Mr. Softy.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so Lin Manuel plays Piraguero.
Oh, yes.
Who's
Okay,
like
yes.
totally a side character, but he's like the guy who sells flavored shaved ice. And then there's Mr. Softy, who runs the ice cream truck. And there's like a battle between these two, but clearly we're on the side of the Piraguero. And so, anyways, they have like this little fight early. There's a song called Piragua. And the really funny thing is that, like I mentioned, Lin Manuel plays Piraguero, but Mr. Softy is played by Christopher Jackson, who is like Lin's best friend, as well as the original Benny from the movie. And he plays George Washington, if you've seen Hamilton.
He's in Moana.
Make way. Very, very talented actor and singer. And anyway, so there's a post-credits scene where Mr. Softy's truck breaks down and the Piraguero just has like the best day making that cash and serving the good people of Washington Heights their cold treats. And I think it's just really well done.
Cool.
And a great cameo for the two of them too.
Definitely.
It must have been a ton of fun for them to film.
It's weird there's a post-credit scene for a musical, but it was fun.
Last thing I wanted to mention is that so in the movie, again, this is a spoiler.
We've already talked about spoiler. Yeah, sure.
What's his name? Usnavi and Vanessa have a child. Her name is Iris. And she's the one who Usnavi is like telling the story to throughout the musical. It's sort of like the framing device that they use. And she's like this beautiful little kid who looks exactly like Anthony Ramos. And there are conspiracy theories on the internet that she's actually his secret child and not the daughter of whoever she claims to be the daughter of. So I thought that was pretty funny and I wanted to mention it. Oh, another fun fact is that John M. Chu named his second child, who was born during the making of this film, Jonathan Heights Chu.
Oh,
so he kind of
that's
named him
nice.
after the movie. Yeah,
I
thought that was really cute too.
In the Heights, everyone.
Yeah.
Fantastic musical movie. You should check it out.
11 out of 10 would recommend.
It's a very, very good. I'm not sure if it's 11 out of 10 for me, but I would say like in terms of a musical movie, like come on, like this movie has a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It made me think, after watching this movie, not only was it late when we watched it, but I remember being like energized because it was so fun. It was so positive, very happy. And just on a visual standpoint, just like so pleasing to the eyes that like there's nothing that I can say that was bad about this movie. Yeah. It was just really good. I mean, if musicals aren't your thing, then that's your own problem, I guess, in a big way. But I think a lot of success from Lin Manuel Miranda is his music is very accessible, I guess, or it's different than, I guess, your stereotypical musicals. I mean, Hamilton was probably the first that's a little bit more mainstream to bring in people who don't like musicals into musicals. But In the Heights, to me, also feels like that in a way as well. Would you agree to some level? Like, it's not like your... I'm trying to think of like a stereotypical musical number here.
Chicago?
Sure. Well, Chicago's really good, though.
Chicago is really good.
But maybe people who don't like musicals would not go to Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like In the Heights can also emulate that too, where it's probably more accessible than something like Chicago.
Yeah, I think it's just so much more fun and uplifting, and it's jam-packed with musical numbers. I'll tell you that. You can't avoid the fact that it is a musical, and a lot of the kind of exposition and like plot advancement is done through music.
And rap.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like a chore at any point. It's definitely different type of music than you'd see in, I would say, basically any other musical. Different characters that you're going to see in any other musical. But hopefully not different actors, because hopefully these actors will go on to be in everything else.
Sure,
they're
and
so
it's
talented.
not like hopefully it's not like a one-off situation.
Yeah.
They get one big movie and then they're not cast in anything
and
again.
I forgot to say, so this isn't the case because this is already like a well-established Broadway actress. But Daphne Rubin Vega, who plays Daniela, is so talented too. I had to give her one last shout out because we didn't talk about her character at all.
Yeah.
She's the partner of Stephanie Beatrice's character.
Oh, okay,
and she's
cool.
a salon owner.
I'm going to go back to the point. Yes, like support this. And so hopefully these actresses and actors and people that worked on this can get jobs afterwards. I always think about, quick tangent, the lead actor of Aladdin, the live action Aladdin, and how since that's come out, it sounds like this guy who was the main character of this huge Disney movie, one of the most popular stories in the Disney lexicon, cannot get work.
Yeah.
He was just cast for his talent, of course, but also his skin color and things like that. And it's like, here's the movie that you're Aladdin, but nobody wants you afterwards. And I don't love this.
It's like, it gives Hollywood the opportunity to say, like, yeah, look, we posted a Middle Eastern, or we casted a Middle Eastern actor in this movie that one time.
Yeah.
But then because they did that once, they feel like they never have to do it again. And that's really gross.
It's really gross. So In the Heights, support it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Go see it.
What's your, Laura, if you had to rate In the Heights on an arbitrary scale, how would you rate it?
I would rate it 12 piraguas out of 7.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of piraguas.
Yeah, enough to get a brain freeze.
I would give it an Anthony Ramos's abs.
Yeah.
Because you do see them.
Yeah. Melissa Barrera's too, eh?
You see a lot of
of great abs in this movie.
They're very fit people in this movie.
But then also like other body shapes and sizes
it's true.
too.
Yeah, again, over walking on the side of a building.
Okay.
And dancing.
Yeah.
And then floating down to kiss?
Floating down to kiss.
All right, Laura.
Brought them back down to earth.
Yes, exactly. That is our show today for In the Heights. Great movie, as we've been talking about. Check it out if you haven't, and see it again if you haven't. You know, it is a great time to be supporting movies again. And Laura, do you have anything to plug before we get out of here today?
Well, I guess I should plug our podcast, Disney Dummies. But I wanted to finish off by plugging In the Heights. Again, one final plug for In the Heights. And Tuong, I wanted to say, the only room with a view is a room with you in it.
Wait, is this a song lyric in the movie, or are you just saying that?
Yeah, it's a lyric, but it doesn't mean it's not.
Thank you, Laura. I would say one of the lyrics back to you, but I find the lyrics impossible to memorize.
Try harder.
I know I should. They're so hard. You know I'm bad at memorizing lyrics. It's not my thing. It's your thing. So there you go. Great. Disney Dummies, In the Heights. Check them out. And I'll say, check out the rest of the shows in the Pod Cavern. www.podcavern.com. Get some merch in ya. Buy a Pod Cavern t-shirt. Support us. You can be wearing it in the summer and dancing along like it's In the Heights.
And the fire hydrants. Open up those fire hydrants,
people.
So
cool.
When was the last time we opened fire hydrants?
Sounds expensive.
I'm not paying for it.
All right, that's it for our show today. We'll see you on another episode of Talking Tongue next week. Until then, Laura, do you want to give a world famous catchphrase that you always say?
Piragua!
Bye, everyone.